sometimes say things that make people angry. Lucky for me, the United States has an amendment to the Constitution that says government may not abridge the freedom of speech. But what does that mean exactly? Because you can't legally just say anything. I can't just say to you people, for example, let's riot, or let's run down the hall and kill Bill O'Reilly. You're not allowed to shout fire in a crowded theater. Unless, of course, there is a fire, then you should. So you can't shout fire in the theater. You can't directly incite violence. There are lines, limits. So what exactly are they, and where should the line be drawn? Well, Harvey Silverglade has devoted his career to that question and to defending speech when it's censored or people who are punished for something they said. And now you say there are new threats to speech. Yes. Like what?
Well, the old threats we managed to beat mostly in court, and also in the court of public opinion. And so the censors have simply come up with new terms for speech they don't like. They call it harassment, or they call it bullying.
Now, before bullying, the attack on speech came from feminists who said you can't just say anything in the workplace because certain things harass women.
Right. Well, that was the harassment phase. They tried to restrict speech on the theory that harassment made it impossible for somebody in a historically disadvantaged group to get their work done, to study and get an education.
And it might if you have a bunch of guys making cracks constantly about women, whites abusing blacks verbally.
Well, you know, speech can be very unpleasant. And it is the unpleasant speech that most needs protection.
But what about the rights of the blacks or the women who are in a workplace where there's horrible speech?
Well, you've got a right to respond with horrible speech if you are attacked with horrible speech. As long as that's a two-way street, the First Amendment has worked.
Now, this week in New York City, down the street here, the mayor finally kicked the Occupy Wall Street protesters out of their encampment. And I understand that they don't get to occupy a park, but I would think they should have a right to speak.
Well, the problem wasn't the speech. It was the disruption of ordinary commerce and activity. And that was the grounds for kicking them out. It would have been unconstitutional, clearly unconstitutional, to kick them out because the mayor didn't like the message.
Cigarette packaging. I would think the government has the right to put those ugly warnings they're demanding on cigarette packs. Demand that they put them on.
Government has a right to insist that in a commercial transaction, like a cigarette sale, in that kind of transaction, the vendor has to give accurate information about the health consequences of smoking. And that's it. The vendor doesn't have to put on the pack, which is the latest government attempt, horror pictures and horror stories, and essentially editorial pictures about the horrors of their own product. They don't have to carry.
Why? What's the difference? They have to put on it, this can kill you, but they don't have to put a picture? Where's the line?
That's correct, because the court has, I think, correctly said that you don't have to carry the government's water in trying to arouse horror at your product. You have fulfilled your legal obligation by simply indicating what the scientific evidence is. You don't have to draw ugly pictures. And I think that's a reasonable line, because otherwise you've got the government saying that people are required to engage in pro-government propaganda.
Another case you took, you were hired by the faculty at the University of Wisconsin.
Yes. The University of Wisconsin had a speech code. The ground for that speech code was we needed it to protect historically disadvantaged minorities, women, gays, and so forth. I didn't actually win that battle. You know who won it? A gay student got up and gave a speech and said, if you're looking to have a speech code to protect me, don't do it, because I actually like knowing who hates me. It's useful. And the faculty was quite energized by that student's speech.
By getting the words out, you know where people stand.
Yes. Or as he put it, I don't have to know. I like to know whom I can turn my back on and who I can't. And the only way I know that is if they're allowed to call me names.
So because of issues like this, Harvey started a group to protect speech on college campuses. FIRE, it's called. Stands for the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. Recent cases, one involves a student at North Carolina Community College who was upset that his school shared his personal information with a bank. The student, Mark Bechtold, then joked about getting back at the school.
Bechtold took to the college's Facebook page on September 28th and wrote, "Anyone else's inbox full of spam today? I wonder if they'd like it if we registered them with every porn site known to man. Anyone know of any good viruses we could send them?" He immediately followed up with, "Okay, maybe that would be a bit excessive."
The school considered that a threat and suspended him. He called FIRE for help. Will Creeley is one of FIRE's lawyers, and what happened then?
Well, luckily, John, we were able to remind the school of their First Amendment duty to protect speech and to respect the First Amendment rights of their students, and the school folded. It took a little bit of national media pressure, but the public doesn't respond well to students being censored on campus, simply for criticizing their own school.
And often that's all it takes, a phone call from a group, someone's paying attention.
Well, to paraphrase Justice Louis Brandeis, sometimes sunlight is the best of disinfectants.
Another of your cases, at Northern Arizona University, some students handed little flags out like this to commemorate the anniversary of September 11th. And they planned to give them out outdoors, but it rained, so they went inside the student union. Then 4 different university officials told them, "You have to move." And they taped that. Here's just the 4th administrator.
Can we get you to fill out the form that talks about time, place, and manner?
The problem is we don't feel, and we don't want to move outside in the rain. And we don't feel that we're violating time, place, and manner. And we've had 4 people speak to us, and they've already warned us. So I told.
Why do we have to move? Because we talk about time, place, and manner.
And the Constitution.
Time, place, and manner. Time, place, and manner.
What does that mean?
Time,
what are we violating?
Time, place, and manner. What's that about?
Well, government actors like state universities can impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on how students engage in First Amendment activities on campus. But there's nothing reasonable about saying that you can't hand out small American flags on the 10th anniversary of 9/11.
But you can't scream at people at 3 in the morning.
You can't scream at people at 3 in the morning. That's a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. You can't have a rock concert outside someone's dorm the night before a final exam.
So, Harvey, why did you start this group? And have you proud? Have they done a good job?
They've done a fabulous job, and I think, as Will points out, the fact that they have to go to court so rarely tells us what a good job they do, because they force the universities to do what the universities know they should be doing, but if no one's looking, they usually don't do it. But we started the group because when Alan Kors and I wrote The Shadow University, the betrayal of liberty on Americans' campuses.
Okay, he's plugging his whole thing. I like it, the betrayal of liberty on the campuses.
Yes.
Come on, the campuses are free places. There's free love, there's free illegal drugs, everything's free, but not
no free
speech?
No free speech. The First Amendment, I think free love is covered by a different amendment. But the First Amendment is the one that's betrayed.
And Will, you've come up with a list of the worst free speech schools.
That's right. Unfortunately, the list could have been a lot longer, John, but you know, in the interest of space and making it accessible, we cut it down a little bit.
Yale, Tufts, these are Brandeis. These are top schools.
Yeah, unfortunately, too many schools promise their students and faculty robust free speech rights, and they have to, because otherwise students and faculty probably wouldn't be interested in coming. But once they arrive on campus, they find the reality is quite different. If you say something that offends somebody, you might find yourself punished.
And give me some examples of the schools on the list. Why is Bucknell there?
The Bucknell University Conservative Club tried to have an affirmative action bake sale, and were shut down by the university.
Why is Yale on the list?
Yale is on the list because Yale has continually disregarded its promises to free speech. And it's kind of a shame because Yale has some of the most eloquent promises to free speech of any university in the country, but they continue to punish students who do something even as trivial as quote an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote and put it on a shirt, Harvard men are sissies, before the big Harvard-Yale football game.
All right, and just so we don't end on bad news, let's put up his list of FIRE's best free speech schools. Why do these schools qualify?
These schools have consistently demonstrated respect for the First Amendment rights of their students or their own promises for free speech if they're a private university. And we've worked with students and administrators at these schools to make sure that they don't have any policies on the books restricting free speech.